tensions between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the West have reached a crescendo following new revelations over Iran's nuclear program.
We're determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons.
Iran is expanding its program to enrich uranium.
In the face of aggression from our enemies, whether from America or the Zionists,
you have an absolute moral obligation to defend the lives of your people.
Containment is definitely not an option.
Iran today has the industrial capability to produce nuclear weapons.
My policy is to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon.
we will attack on the same level as our enemies attack us.
Talking about ending the war, my God, we're just starting a war right today.
Senator Clinton, I'll give you a chance to respond.
Well, I don't know where to start.
But they hadn't decided to actually put those pieces together. It sounded like a bizarre anti-conspiracy theory, or like it just sounded very un-John Baird-like. Well, joining me now from Ottawa to talk about that self-delusion that for a moment infected our own foreign minister is John Robson, professor of all things important. Hey, John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I was struck by John Baird saying that. I mean, I thought, who the hell is briefing him saying that Iran would spend billions of dollars building nuclear weapons, building missiles, threatening to scorch Israel and attack the West, but actually didn't mean it? Like that, just to get that kind of self-delusion, you have to be listening to a UN bureaucrat, and I think maybe John Baird was that time. Now, you've read a deep study on this matter from the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Tell me what they say about Iran's intentions.
What they say, essentially, is that you've got to be kidding yourself if you don't see what this all adds up to. They say the International Atomic Energy Agency, which has been haggling with Iran over, will you tell us what you're doing, could you admit this is your handwriting, blah, 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 has put out enough unclassified information that you can tell that the Iranians are assembling all the pieces of the nuclear rocket kit, and that there is really no way of understanding why they're getting all the pieces other than they want to build a rocket. You know, people are fixated on uranium enrichment, and indeed, without uranium, it's fairly obvious that you have trouble with making an atomic bomb. But if someone said, here, Ezra, here's some uranium, would you be in a position to make a bomb? Nah. It's a rather complicated business. You need the design that you need working on is one where you put all the uranium like this and then you explode it so it all gets crammed together and goes critical, which is easy for me to do with my hands here on TV. But it takes very precise timing, and there are particular kinds of detonation systems which the Iranians are working on.
And these clearly have no civilian purposes. You don't have a detonation system for nuclear power plants, and it's not like the Iranians are short of energy. I mean, they've got one of the largest oil reserves in the world. I mean, but what kind of person thinks that, okay, pay no attention to the guy buying the gun, loading the gun, polishing the gun, aiming the gun, saying he's going to shoot us. Pay no attention to that because he doesn't mean it. Like that's the equivalent of what we're hearing from the UN, and I hate to say it, John Baird said the same thing to me when I talked to him a couple months ago. Why would the UN engage in self-delusion? Because it's easier than you know, coming to grips with reality, I guess.
I think people have a number of motives, including the really bad thing is, if this is all what it seems to be, what do you do? And even the author of this paper winds up with a kind of nebulous, we need a new approach. Well, great, such as what? Because he says even even an attack on Iran probably wouldn't destroy their nuclear program. We can't even be sure we could get their enrichment facilities. They might have new centrifuges. They might have moved them further underground. Iran's a big place. They're very determined. But the fact is, if they're building the rockets, they're doing the computer studies of these kinds of explosions and controlling the shock wave to compress the uranium. They're trying to enrich the uranium. They're saying they're going to get rid of Israel in one dramatic stroke. You have to, and they're working on modifying their existing missiles to carry a new payload. What can it be? They're seeing what explosives do to very dense metals. What can that all mean? The fact is they're trying to build nuclear-armed rockets, and they're trying to build them because they're thoroughly obnoxious, hate the West, and would like to see all the Jews dead. And so you're faced with the fact that you may have to go to war against a country that has at least some nuclear weapons, and people would rather not face that. Other people are actively hostile to the West and are trying to pretend it's not happening because they want the West's enemies to be stronger. I mean, there's a variety. There are useful idiots, and then there are useless non-idiots out there. And when they gang up, you got to look out.
You know, I remember as a child studying the history of the Second World War and the Holocaust and the lead up to it, and all I could think of is, why couldn't they see the obvious? I mean, there was Hitler giving his crazy talks. He laid it all out in a book called Mein Kampf. They were one at a time violating international opinion in the Treaty of Versailles. Why couldn't they see? Well, because there's none so blind as those who choose not to see. I feel like we're doing the same thing again. This guy couldn't be clear. The enemies of the West couldn't be clear. And I think you're right. I think it's denial. I think it's, oh, I want to hit the snooze button. Can someone else deal with this? I don't know how to deal with this. I think it's terrible. Now, generally, Stephen Harper is amongst the more clear-eyed prime ministers. Do you think, or is the problem that even if he was clear-eyed, Canada really can't stop it? It's really the United States, and that's probably it. Maybe Israel, but maybe not even them. It's really Barack Obama. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about Stephen Harper, although he does talk the talk, he seems to understand the world. We don't have armed forces capable of taking a meaningful role in an operation like this. We certainly couldn't initiate it. We couldn't go in there with just the Israelis. We are powerless, and when you are powerless, it is comforting to say nothing needs to be done, since you know you can't do it. You know, you brought up Hitler, so I'd like to bring up his great adversary, Winston Churchill. And in his book about the 1930s, Churchill said trying to warn people about the Nazi menace, and the public debate was like being smothered by a feather mattress. And I feel a bit, because there aren't a lot of people out there really arguing, oh no, the Iranians aren't doing it, but they're somehow trying to make you feel as though if you don't put the pieces together, the Iranians won't, so it's all okay. Yeah. That you can get away with just being mentally vacant, that's a solution to clear and present danger. And of course, that's exactly what didn't work in the 30s, but that was a long time ago, and we've kind of forgotten, and we've got our electronic gadgets to play with and our diets to observe, and you know, it's just so much trouble dealing with aggressors in the world, and who could really hate us anyway? We're so wonderful.
Yeah. John, I think that book by Churchill was called The Gathering Storm. I feel a storm is gathering again.
Storm.
Thanks for being here on the show today. Hey,